Everybody, good morning. My name is Bryan Walstrom. Very happy to be here. I feel very blessed to work in this industry I'm working in now, which is aviation. It's a hobby that's turned career over the past 8 years. I get to talk to people that are really passionate about their hobbies, and I've turned this hobby into a full-time career. So I own the Experimental Aircraft channel, which is a weekly show I produce, and I distribute that directly to YouTube and then cut it up for social media for promotions and stuff like that. To this date, over 8 years, we have made over 500 episodes on the channel, which equates to about 34 million views over the last 8 years. That's about 4 million per year. And I know that doesn't sound grand when some of the bigger channels might get 4 million in one episode, but on the smaller channels, I guess it's just proof of concept that you can make a living out of being a smaller channel. So what I do is I interview builders, sometimes at their houses or at their hangars at the airport, sometimes at their kitchen counters, where they're building a component or subcomponent of their aircraft. Usually they start with something small like a rudder or a tail section or something like that. They can work in their own home in the climate-controlled comfort environment of their house, and then as it gets bigger, moves out to the hangar and so forth. So on top of that, we do something that's very popular. We capture factory tours. So basically where either the aircraft or components of, or companies that sell different things that's like ancillary that would go into it, will go to their factory. I've always really enjoyed behind the scenes BTS type of stuff and like Discovery Channel, how it's made. So we've kind of incorporated that into our style and our different episodes for our show. And then on top of that, we will do event coverage. There are 2 really large air shows in the United States and others around the world, but I'd kind of like to stick to the United States. So we got Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which is Air Venture, which is EAA, not to be confused with EAC, which is me. That's the Experimental Aircraft Association, which is a huge entity that's been around since probably before I was born, or many of you were even born. It's been around for a long time. So yeah, we do event shows. Again, this is a full-time gig for us. I've been doing it for 8 years, and about the 7-year mark, a year later, we went full-time, still kind of at the bootstrapping level of, trying to keep everything savvy and save money. But the Lord has provided us an income, and I'm not complaining. I'll talk more about the EAA in a minute as far as how this got started, but just a real quick intro to me and my family. My wife, Katie Walstrom, which will be here later tonight for the rest of the festival. We have 3 little girls, Jetta, Aviana, Skyla, and yes, there's a theme to that. They all end in no. But the deal was I was able to name my children, but they were unique names. But my wife's like, we have to have a normal name somewhere in the middle there. So we got Jetta, Lynn, Aviana, Grace, and Skyla, Ray. So I got aviation-themed girls. So I have 0 background in content creation, all right? So I hope that maybe gives you a little bit of confidence if you're just starting out. I actually have a background in a lot of mechanical things. I was a mechanical field installer for an industrial automation company for like a decade. I moved into project management and got to the inner circle of the company, working with the president and the top sales guys. And unfortunately, in corporate America, when you get that close to the center, you start to find and learn about the dysfunctions of the family, if you will. And I wasn't liking the direction that it was going, and I realized like I have to either go back to school to learn something or start my own business. And when you start your own business, you get to skip the line and kind of make your own rules. So anyway, we chose that. So I started with this computer right here. I kind of go through the tools of the trade. I made the decision to do this. I bought a computer. It's a $1,500 gaming computer. Why is it a gaming computer? Because it can handle graphics, right? Again, newbie here. So got the computer that handles graphics. I'm embarrassed to say this because I'm still using this today, a kit camera for $600. What you see right here is what came in the box. Like this was extra, right? I mean, rocking a Canon T6i, right? So that was my first initial investment, and luckily software nowadays has gotten affordable where you didn't have to buy the whole package all up front. You can do a subscription. So I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which I'm sure probably you all are familiar with. It's about, I don't know, $200 a year or something like that. And I use Epidemic sound, which is another $150, $180 per year. And then boom, you're in business, right? Going down the line after, I don't know, about a year into it, I bought my first GoPro. In aviation, GoPros are usually fastened to a wing or the tail or somewhere in the cockpit that give you different camera perspectives. I use it just as a steady cam to walk around when I'm doing, walk around aircraft and stuff like that. This mic works great when you're really close to somebody, as you know, a shotgun mic, but as soon as they turn away or the wind blows, it doesn't work. So I finally invested several different mics trying out, but I'm using right now is just a DJI wireless mic and some other just very inexpensive lapel mics. It does a great job. In fact, if you're out running and gunning, especially at an air show, there's wind, lapel mics work very well because it keeps the wind from getting around you and stuff like that, right? Later, probably maybe 3 to 5 years in, I finally invested in a DJI Mavic, which, it kind of makes it a little bit more dynamic to get in perspective, especially when you got bigger things that you're capturing on camera, like an airplane or an air show. The thing is about air shows, it's airspace, so I'm very limited to what I do at an air show because of the restrictions and rules and stuff like that. But quite honestly, most of the time that I use it is when I go on site to somebody's home or these factory tours, and I'm just using it as like a rolling dolly shot. It's a nice, different perspective. I'll even use it indoors in a building, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with those type of shots. And when I am at an airport, I invested in basically a transceiver so I can hear when aircraft are coming in and largely at uncontrolled airports. I think it's about 5 or 6 years in, there's this, I don't want to say it's a show, but the National STOL series started, which happens to be like these short takeoff or land aircraft. That's the tail wheels, the bush planes, and it got really popular. And they just started, so I figured I would follow them around for a year. So I didn't miss one. I think they had a dozen. I didn't miss one the whole year, and I went out and finally invested in the camcorder for one reason, and that's the long shots, right? Because you got aircraft that are taking off and going past you, and that's not. I'm not really a camera guy, to be honest. Like, I don't have a lot of glass. Like, I think this is an 18 to 55 lens. I know you can swap lenses and stuff. This was actually the most expensive camera I ever bought, right? It's another Canon, and I think I spent like $1,700 on it, which is, a lot of money for somebody who's not used to spending money on things. But I just wanted to showcase this for y'all today. That you can start out small and progressively work your way through to bigger things as you get going, right? And the elephant in the room, I wanted to showcase this not because I'm proud of it, not because it's an idol or anything like that, just because this is what it looks like in person. If you haven't gotten here yet, YouTube sends you this box that has this in a nice little letter saying, like, do you remember your first subscriber, and thank you for making us millions of dollars over the past 8 years. But truthfully, I don't even hang this on the wall. It's been in this box for years, right? It's neat when you get it, and it's like a little pat in the back, like, oh, cool. But after that, it's just like YouTube, Google AdSense doesn't pay you any more or any less when you get this and you get 100,000 subscribers. And it's just it's a nice little token from them. But I just want to, don't let that be an idol or an absolute goal in the process of this. So we're going to get into the tech side of this stuff in just a minute. I just want to explain real quick how I got here. And this is my third year at the film festival. And about 3.5 years ago, I've been doing this for a while and learning what's that movie quote? A unique set of skills, whatever, to do both video capturing and editing, self-taught. I'm like, well, what else could I do with this? Other than running around and capturing interviews and reporting on people playing with their expensive toys, which I admit, airplanes are expensive toys for the most part, right? They do go into work and, do work for people, but they are, for the most part, in the segment I cover, toys. So it got me thinking, what else could I do with this talent, these tools and that kind of stuff? And I started thinking about doing all kinds of different things. And right about this time, it was being really promoted on, I think it was PureFlix and other things, the Birthright Outlaw movie, which is a Burns & Company film, right? And then we just started binge watching PureFlix and all these different Christian films. Not that we weren't watching Christian films before, but just really binge watching. Like, where could we do something here? So I'm pretty resourceful in landing interviews with people because what I do in aviation, that's how we get our content. So I simply reached out, looked at all the different social media posts for Burns & Co., reached out to them, and Aaron, ironically enough, replied to my email. So that started a conversation in email, and that ended up being phone calls and kind of bouncing some ideas back and forth of what I could do, like where there might be a need and so forth. So I had started Redeemed Media as a second channel, which don't go there, it's just parked at the moment. I'm still trying to figure out and let God lead into the next thing. But long story short, he suggested, he's like, I'm in the Florida Panhandle, which is 2 hours and 20 minutes. I know it's a really far drive. But Aaron suggested, you're not far, why don't you go to Albany this coming season and check out the film festival? And in fact, I'm gonna be there and we'll talk. So long story short, here I am 3 years later. And I think it was last year, I talked to Philip Telfer a few times about some of these ideas and things like that. And he's, you need to pray on it and figure out what's going to happen, with your next steps and all. But this is a good place to learn. So I was asking people, like, what is the purpose of a film festival anyway? And I got a one-word answer, and it's practice. I'm like, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, all these films being shown all day long and stuff like that, it gets in front of a crowd, you get a little bit of feedback, real-world feedback. So I got to thinking, what can I share with you in my YouTube world that I've been blessed to have these past 8 years, and that is practicing in YouTube, right? So I want to compare for a minute maybe how movies and YouTube could work for you, right? Now I understand just from being here a little bit, it seems like there's definitely a big separation there. It's like, I think people working in film don't look at YouTube. Maybe it's like TV versus big screen films, and I don't know if it's like the Harley Davidson crowd versus the sport bike crowd. You don't even wave to each other going down the road, but hopefully we can bridge the gap on that, right? So how can YouTube movies be useful for you? Or like, where's the crossover, right? And just doing a little bit of research, because I'm not a movie guy as far as like creating, at least not yet, and I'm not sure I'm even led to go there, but I thought of the 3-act structure, right, which I think is the very basic structure that people use in films. You've got an intro, a middle, and an end. And that's where I live. I mean, that's what I do, right? And so I think there's an opportunity if you are especially just starting out, or even if you're not just starting out, just getting seen, and the practice of getting seen is creating your content in YouTube to be able to get it out there and just start practicing, right? And one of the biggest things that are really important in creating videos is, in fact, the intro, right? So I want to share with you an example of one of the more recent videos I did. And this kind of bounced around a little bit, but I kind of call it, I know there's different names for this, I kind of call it like a pull, rest, pull concept of keeping your video moving. And an intro, which I'm sure you've seen lots of examples of this, you want to start out really fast and get the hook out there immediately to get people's attention. You have literally seconds. And we'll go through some of the flow of that in a second, but here, I'm just to show you an example real quick of an intro. right, well, a trip out here to Wisconsin today to cover a bit of history. This is the Signet. Matt is going to give us a full tour and a walk around his aircraft right now. I'll let it run for a second. Aviation is a very diverse community with all sorts of personalities in the pilots we meet. Just as diverse as the aircraft they choose to fly. Some are really fast, others really slow. Still some just are happy to get into the air and fly. All right, Matt, so welcome to the show. We wanted to showcase, I think you wanted to showcase, what do we call this shadow on the ground here?
This is the famous...
Okay, I let that run for a second because I wanted to showcase the intro. It's very fast-paced, and then you got the bumper real quick, and then it slows down. And that method, if you will, has worked for me very well. And that's kind of the intro, middle, and outro, where you get the hook to get everybody in, you kind of slow things down, you change your music, change your tone, and then get into the story side of, or the middle of your story here, right? So as you can see, that there's a lot that went into that. I mean, several different cameras, camera angles, voiceovers, all that stuff, and that's a matter of like 10 seconds, and, you know, to be honest, I really love doing intros. Like, that's where the heart of things really start to get going. It's a lot of work for 10, 15, 20 seconds because it's a lot of fast changes and sometimes music changes and stuff like that. I really love creating intros, which is why I thought maybe one day I might do trailers because that's kind of the same concept. But anyway, just to give you an example of slowing things down into the middle there, right? And it also goes to that strategy of the pull, rest, pull, because you need to keep people's attention. And, you know, I assume you guys do the same thing in movies where you want to capture the attention, you know, right away and then keep, otherwise it just gets boring, people fall asleep. All right? So different styles of creating this content. We'll talk about the capture process, right? Because I don't know if you guys have done any of this field work before, but if you don't do it sequentially, it creates a lot of work for you in the back end. And I've been places where it's like I'm not really, sometimes you don't know until you get there what you're going to be able to capture, right? This is kind of like a documentary style, right? It's not a pre-written thing. But I have found it very helpful and beneficial to try to capture as sequentially as possible. Otherwise, I kind of look at it as a 1,000-piece puzzle piece that you just shook up in a box and threw out on the ground, and you kind of flip over and like, what do I have here, and how can I make some art out of it? Which, don't get me wrong, like some days if I got some extra time, that could be fun and challenging too, of making something from nothing and making it look good, right? But anytime you can capture it sequentially, it's going to make your workflow a lot better. That's why I personally like, as far as workflow and also just of interest, of doing factory tours. Because factory tours, there is an absolute sequence, or it's like there's a raw material that starts here in the building, and at the end of it, you have a product, whether it's an airplane or a component or something like that. That makes it a lot easier and faster for me to sequentially do that. You got 1 through 50 steps, and boom, 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 you have a finished product. The other thing I've learned out in the field capturing content for videos, and this is often really difficult if you're not keeping it at the forefront of your mind, and that is B-roll. You always think that you've got enough B-roll, but it just, you do a 30-minute interview, and depending on, I do try to change the scenery, like having somebody stand in front of something, like let's talk for a segment of 3 or 5 minutes, and then let's walk over here and stand in front of this airplane, or just to change it up. But even on top of that, you want to have B-roll just to keep things moving. And what I try as a rule, and this is difficult because especially if you're like on a time crunch of working with them walking and talking, and then like, well, I need to be by myself for about the same time. But if you can capture the same amount of B-roll as A-roll and throw away the extra, that's a better rule of thumb. Okay. I wanted to show another example here real quick of just the intro and the slowdown middle. And this is, again, more like a documentary style. This is RT Aviation. If you love to fly solo, we've got a new aircraft to introduce you to right now. Interesting thing about aviation, there is always someone working on a new design somewhere around the globe. And I love discovering aircraft that not too many people are aware of. Enter in the ATEC 212 Solo. All right, so back here at RT Aviation, there's all kinds of aircraft here, but we want to, again, showcase each one individually because there's so much to talk about. Yep. Again, just an example of doing an intro and then slowing things down and getting into the talk there. So the middle is also where you want to put in, at some point in time, as you're working through this, and people are liking what you're doing and seeing. I mean, if it's a film, you're watching like a full length, obviously you're probably not going to do this, but no, you can still do this, because YouTube is where you get paid, right? I mean, Google AdSense, Google owns YouTube, if you didn't know that, and they put ads, they're going to put ads in it anyway. So you might as well get yourself some sponsors, some partners with this. And the middle is where you want to land your partners, your sponsors, okay? I try to, like, let's say, for me, the perfect timeline is about 18 minutes of where I try to upload to. You can go longer, but I find like that's the sweet spot. So somewhere around 6 to 10 minute mark is where I'll want to drop in my sponsors, okay? And that's a whole other story. In fact, tomorrow I'm doing another session, same time, same room, talking about how to build a channel. Well, I can dive into that a little bit deeper tomorrow. But you're going to want to drop it somewhere to the 6 to 10 minute mark. And how I do it, and a lot of people, I think, are still used to TV, where you've got this longer 30-second to 60-second thing, and they own that space. And I think even a few years ago, that was okay for YouTube. But as you all know, with everything, with these shorts and reels happening, everything's getting smaller and shorter and shorter. So there's no way I would sell a 30 to 60-second ad spot to one person unless they're paying a lot of money. And even then, I would second guess that, because you might have them for a season and they're gone, and then you have nobody else, and let me back up just for a second. How we get paid used to be more of a 50-50 through Google AdSense, YouTube, and then sponsors. Now it's been a little bit more 20-80, right? And it's just how things have gone. So that becomes a large portion of your income as you move forward. So again, I would not give away the whole thing. So what I do is we might have 4 or 5 sponsors that I push in 60 seconds. So it's a real quick show your logo, show your website, a little bit of action type stuff, and then they're out. All right, but that's honestly what they're looking for. They're wanting to be attached. Most people I've found, again, we can talk about sponsorships later, they want to be attached to something that looks good and has a good reputation, right? And obviously if it's, like, we do try to go after aviation-related sponsors and stuff, because it's very relatable. We are going to be going outside the box a little bit, but not too far. But they do appreciate being attached to something that is good and reputable, right? So yeah, again, I would not give away a 60-second ad spot unless they're really, really, really wanting to throw some money on it. And just to give you an idea not to share like all the cards, going back to the split. Now we are on a weekly upload schedule, so about 4 episodes a month. Contractually, I say 3 in case I get sick or somebody I want to interview drops out, that I don't miss an episode and make somebody mad. But we are able to stick, for the most part, to 4. But through that, and things have changed a little bit. There's a lot more competition going out there, but we average between $2,000 and $3,000 a month, which is a 30-day rolling average from just Google AdSense. Again, I've been doing this for 8 years. It's a niche channel, but just to give you an idea of the expectations, it's about $2,000 to $3,000 a month. So providing for a family, of 5, that's not enough. So the partners and sponsorships have to fill the gap there, and other streams of income, which again we can talk about later. So moving through the middle, which again is the slow portion of your film or YouTube video, and you can go back and forth with that. The outro, what I've learned, can be a couple minutes, but it needs to be usually fairly abrupt. And I say that, and others have said this too, because you don't want to kind of let people know the end is near. I mean, if they're watching the timeline, then that is what it is, because they'll click off earlier if they know it's going to be finishing soon. And you want to try to keep them on there as long as possible, because watch time is what it's all about, right? And then also, during your outro is a place where you want to put in your CTAs, your call to action, whether it's to follow the next video or to follow you on social media or Patreon or that kind of stuff. And so you want to, again, kind of just abruptly bring in that music that's going to lead into your outro and just kind of do that all at once. Let's talk about something that's really fun, the comments section. Okay? And this goes back to, I think, really relatable to the film YouTube crossover, whereas, I don't think anybody here is going to throw tomatoes at you watching your films, right? But on YouTube, they will. And that's something, I'll be honest, when I first started doing this, it's funny. You'll see like 50 good comments and then like 2 or 3 bad ones, but you'll like want to jump right away to the bad ones to try to like either defend yourself or like explain why, or it is what it is. You will have to grow thick skin in this industry. I don't think it matters if it's film, TV, radio, whatever. And people will comment about the stupidest things. Like I'll put some music on that I think is amazing, that fits the scene, and people will be like, oh, that was horrible, those bashing drums and this and that. And the very next comment, oh, I love that music. Who's the composer? Where can I get this music? And it's like, you literally can't win with that, right? Taking a step back on what else about the comments, and this is something I've shared with others many, many times over the years. Like, I kind of feel very sometimes shallow in my work, because my work is reporting on people playing with their toys of airplanes, and it's not very eternally, giving and creating things that will be impactful eternally. But there has been lots of interactions through the comment section, both for YouTube and social media, where people have said negative things, and that's a real opportunity for us to shine, right? Is to be different, not to attack them back, become the keyboard warrior, which I say I've told people to holster their keyboards before, right? But seriously, just to kill them with kindness, and that in itself is just so rare that people pay attention to that. It's also like, through doing this, I'm trying to help build the community of builders that are, the aviation industry. I'm trying to personally, on my own shoulders, lift this community up, this industry up. And I want it to be a very welcoming environment. Same thing for you all, creating films, videos. You want to be a very welcoming entity into this world, all right? So keep that in mind. If you can kill them with good comments, right? Let's talk about other content for a second here. Getting ideas for creating other content. Now, again, there's so many things you can do with this other than just film, but again, it's all practice. Something I came up with a couple years ago, because I'm really passionate about engines. that's what powers aircraft, right? And a lot of this, truthfully, has been a little bit selfish. I'm on my own journey building an airplane. So interviewing people and different companies is like to find out really behind the scenes, and they let me in, and I get to learn a lot about it. Now, I can't report on everything I see, unfortunately, sometimes, but I also find out for me personally, maybe if a company's good, bad, or ugly.
Welcome to this year's Engine Week. It's time to learn all about engines in aviation.
Firewall forward kits, sales and support for the engines overhauls.
Firewall forward components, radiators, cowlings, engine mounts.
This is based on several hundred Corvair-powered Zeniths that have flown over the years.
Thunderbolt is kind of its own animal for Lycoming.
Now it's Continental Titan, that's how they came together, yeah.
And we're looking for service and support dealers currently.
This is the UL 260i, and this is the low compression version.
So this is an idea I had a little while ago, and this is something I want to share with you all as an idea, as an option moving forward to start something. I've liked watching the Discovery Channel for a long time, and I always thought I'm not really big into sharks, but they had Shark Week. I'm like, how cool would it be to have Engine Week? So I think it's been going on 4 seasons now. I don't do it every year because honestly, engines don't change that quickly in technology every year. So every other year, which this is the year I'll do it again, I create a series of covering all the mainstream engines that are available to kit builders. And when possible, I try to do a factory tour, boots on the ground, because that's gets the most views, and I like it. Sometimes, as you saw, I did a couple Zoom interviews. But number one, it's very beneficial to the community because people are looking for this that maybe aren't able to or haven't thought of going to or don't have access to boots on the ground. So it's very giving back to the community, and that's kind of why I do it. It's very educational, and then for you, the series style is a really good, it's a great way to practice, plus you don't have to collect it all at once, you can do it over time. Like there's no way I can do all this in a couple weeks and throw it up there. Every year I do this, I released it during Thanksgiving, and that was kind of tactfully. You figure people are eating lots of turkey, getting really, really full, and sitting around watching TV. I'm like, this is a great time to put out a series, right? And it's done pretty well. So as an example, as an idea, you could create a series, anything you want, back-to-back-to-back episodes. In fact, I would say that would be a great launch to your channel because the algorithms stuff see this, you're uploading on a daily basis or it's being released on a daily basis. That could really help you jumpstart getting attention on your channel is doing a series. Again, you could do it on anything that you want, right? The other things to do, and this is more of just like a timely thing, watching the times. We all watch the news and social in your feed, and if you have anything that can relate to what's coming out in the news, again, algorithms. When the Ukraine war was going on, or just started, I was working with a company that, ironically enough, even while bombs were being dropped on the ground, kit aircraft were being produced and shipped to the U.S. You're like, how are they allowing this, right? But truth be told, I also heard not only making kits, but on the down low, I think they're also using them as drones because they're inexpensive compared to the multi-million-dollar, anyway, we won't get into that. So I did a little intro, interview.
The entire world is now aware of the war going on in the Ukraine and how that could possibly affect supply chains. But a little aircraft company in Kyiv hasn't been affected by this turmoil and now supplying an American distributor with, get this, ready-to-fly airplanes. Well, almost ready to fly.
So there you go. Anything like, not to be an opportunist, but when it makes sense, jump on it. Newsy things definitely get attention and get views. In fact, perfect example, there's this really, really known popular kit company out in Washington called Vans Aircraft. They've been around, again, since probably before I was born. They came out with a new model or they were teasing they were coming out with a new model, but they didn't release any photos, any video of it. And one afternoon, they released a teaser. It was about, I want to say 3 minutes long, which is short for YouTube. And it didn't show a whole lot. It showed it taking off, showed a couple of interior parts. Well, I jumped, like I told my wife, I'm sorry, for the next 4 hours, and it was almost dinner time. I'm like, I'm gonna be busy. So I jumped online, downloaded their footage, and honestly, they don't care because it's helping promote them. It's not like they're gonna get mad I'm swiping content. It's a news thing. So long story short, I grabbed the content, and then I started pausing it and trying to zoom in and just doing all these voiceovers and talking about it and stuff like that, and my video was 12 minutes. Now, if you're really interested in something, if you see something that's 3 minutes, you're absolutely gonna watch the 12-minute one, aren't you? Because it's gonna have more information. I ended up having 6 times the amount of views than the factory had on releasing their own content, all right? So I'm just saying, things that are newsy or timely, again, if you're trying to grow your channel, if you're trying to create content, jump on those things because it does matter and it does make a dent on what you're trying to do. So I want to change gears for a minute and talk about the purpose of content creation for you and the mission. I'll give you another airplane example, surprise. When people talk to me and ask me about what type of aircraft to buy or build, each aircraft has a mission, right? There's aircraft that are built that go kind of slow, like 100 miles an hour or less. They have big tires on them, and they land in really short distances so they can go in the backcountry to go camping and hunting and stuff like that. And there's other aircraft that have shorter wings, much smaller tires, and go really fast, like 150 to 200 miles an hour, that absolutely can't land in the same place. And then there's aircraft that are somewhere in the middle. So you can do anything you want, right? But kind of choose your mission of doing that. And maybe you don't know what that is at the get-go, and you might have to pivot. But the key thing is just to start. And I think I'm a really good example of just start where you are. Again, 0 training, 0 background, and this got me paid, right? So you can just start anywhere, but pick a mission and go after it. Whether it's art, education, edutainment, that kind of stuff. You probably are doing projects for fun. I mean, get your family involved. There's a couple times I've shot stuff in my front yard with my kids and my wife. In fact, I even did a little music video on my birthday that I shot it, edited it, all the stuff in 4 hours. The whole thing took 4 hours. And I threw it up on my birthday. It was me playing piano, and then I had my wife do a little skit with the kids and stuff. And it got 8,000 views, and we actually ranked on Google for a day for blues music. For one day, we ranked. I mean, it was low, but we were ranking, right? So anyway, it's a lot of fun. I feel very blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. I hope that I can keep on doing it. And something else to consider, guys, I'm sure you've thought about this, getting into this, especially if you're going to try to live in this space, is I honestly do put this kind of fleece out to God on a weekly, if not monthly basis. It's like, if this is not what you want me to do, I enjoy it. I mean, kind of like what Mr. Drake, Adam, was sharing this morning. Like, this wouldn't have happened. The doors would have not opened, except for God. I mean, I have a hangar. I'm not bragging, but it's paid through sponsorship and stuff like that. That I have a kit aircraft. I have the ultimate man cave. You know what I'm saying? And I go in there sometimes, and I literally will stop in the hangar, if this is not meant to be, if I'm not supposed to just take it away, and there was a time that I wouldn't be okay with that, because I really love this, and there's a certain amount of pride and stuff like that. But I've gotten to a point where, life is short, and I feel like several years ago that I lived a lot for myself. And since I've been married and now have 3 kids and stuff, I think that changes you too. That I realize, time is getting shorter and shorter, and I've definitely lived for myself in the previous years, and I absolutely want to live for God. And here's the thing, I remember growing up and having all these different things that I want to do, and even the girl that I wanted to choose, the type of girl I wanted to choose, And it's like not realizing, don't you think God, who created me, created you, might know you a little better than yourself of what you want, what you need? And I'm saying that because I could not have dreamed up this job. I just couldn't, right? And where I came from, like I've been employed my entire life up until 8 years ago. And I've had like 30 jobs, to be honest. Okay, my longest running job was 10 years with the project management and field tech, but before that, and I'm surprised, like each year I go through and ask this question, but I also keep things in perspective, and I think it humbles you. Consider doing any of this, like Adam said earlier, like he worked for 8 years on Chosen, it's gonna end. What next? And you know, like TV series, you've seen TV series that last a pilot or 20 years. And that's the space we're working in. Like, this could end tomorrow. Subscribers can drop off, views get down, sponsors drop off, and then all of a sudden Bryan gets to get, a new job again. I hope it's, still self-employed because I'm really liking this. And I feel like I've been made to be self-employed. So just to keep that in perspective, to keep yourself humble through this, and remember where that money comes from. I'll give you just a short, little, teeny story. And this is something I remind myself because I still struggle with this sometimes, and that is like tithing, right? One night at the dinner table, I've got 3 girls. I'm the only male in the house, okay? I'm the only male in the house. But my middle child, Aviana, who's now 8, this was a couple years ago. We're eating, and we just started eating, and I forget what was on her plate, French fry or something like that, and I took the French fry off her plate and ate it. And she's like, "Dad, what are you doing? That's mine." And I'm like, I don't know why, but like in that moment, I'm like, wow. Anytime I think or hesitate about tithing, think about where that money came from. Here I am, dad, at the head of the table, with my whole family here, single income family. I am the provider. And I'm not saying that to brag, it's just how it is, right? That's just truth. And my daughter is telling me, "What are you doing taking my stuff, my food?" Right? And if that doesn't show like an absolute, just perfect picture example of that relationship, right? So I say that to remind myself, I'm saying that to remind you as a simple example. Think of where all this comes from, the source, right? And just keep yourself humbled. There's more to share. I've got like all kinds of more things I can show of the story. I think we're about 15 minutes left here. I want to stop here. Does anybody have any questions about YouTube specifically or the industry or getting started? You want to step up here, or do I need to just repeat the question?
I'll just be loud.
Well, okay.
He's going to have to repeat it.
Okay. I can repeat it, that's fine.
Okay, so first of all, I want to applaud you.
Thanks.
You're doing something you love, you're passionate about, you're good at, and you're able to do it for a living. I think it's everybody's passion and desire, so you're very inspiring to see that.
Thank you.
So I applaud you. You've also found a really cool niche thing, right? That's why you have viewers, that's why you have subscribers, if people want your content. It's great, and it's got my little spin. So I'd like a little clarification on the difference in sponsorships and ads. When you talk about YouTube ads, are those things they voluntarily put on you and you don't have control of that, but you still get revenues just because of what? So my channel's very new, and so I haven't even gotten into that headspace yet, but kind of thinking futuristic. Like, how would the sponsorship versus ads work? How do you get the ad monetization?
Okay, so the question is to clarify the YouTube ad sponsorships versus paid sponsorship or advertisers. So I'll jump to the YouTube Google AdSense part of it. Again, Google owns YouTube, which is the biggest search engine in the world, right? Things are constantly changing, so I can't quote exactly what the numbers are, but it used to be something like 1,000 subscribers and so many thousands of hours of watch time, which sounds ridiculous, but you'll be surprised how many hours will build quickly, okay? For me, again, this is a God-ordained thing I feel, and I'm not just saying that pushing my own agenda. Things happened. One of the first videos that I did was my worst video, which I know, I'll tell you about some other things too, that's tomorrow's thing, of Sean Cannell, Think Media, person to follow. But he often says, your first video is your worst video, and I can attest to that. I mean, the information was there, it was educational, but it wasn't great. But that video crossed many different genres all at once. It was a woman that was a propeller manufacturer, so it was machining, woodworking, aviation, a woman working in a craft, all those things all at once. And it reached over 100,000 views in a matter of a couple weeks. So monetization came really quickly for us. It wasn't enough to pay the bills, but at least we got in there, okay? So, and how YouTube does, unfortunately, sometimes they'll match a genre of industry to your video, but quite often they don't, and I wish I could change that, but I can't. You do have control. You can have an auto, basically, they insert wherever they want, or you can place them. I have lately just been let it stay on auto because that's the most amount of ads. Sometimes it's annoying. But where it could be beneficial, like we just talked about doing a series, if you do your own pause and things or a transition, that's a perfect spot to do a commercial. And then it looks a little bit more like TV, where you're fading out and then a commercial comes up. So you can manually place the ads. You do have that option, okay? And they do randomly go in there. Now we also have, we'll talk about the sponsored advertised ads that other companies pay us directly, which is where more of the money comes from. That, again, I just put in myself between the 6 to 10 minute mark. And sometimes YouTube does theirs right after or right before, but they've kind of figured out how to time it around your transitions. So it doesn't interrupt it. Like, I don't think I've ever seen YouTube interrupt my own ad, which is kind of ironic. You think they might want to, because I'm sure they have to know we're getting more money from other places, but does that help answer your question?
It does. For the monetization with YouTube, does it automatically happen, or are you clicking a button, signing up for something specific? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so
If I publish a video tomorrow and it hits 250,000 views, am I going to get paid for that?
all right, so the question is, does YouTube automatically turn that on? No, I think they notify you when that's available, but then you still have to go in there and basically be eligible, click that you want to be eligible for it. And in fact, even when I upload, I think there's a thing of, yes, to monetize or not monetize, you know. And there's other things that go along with that too, of like using certain music, and you can get demonetized for that and stuff like that. I very much want to get into possibly doing something for YouTube Kids, but I don't know if I want to do specifically YouTube Kids, but with more of that. I even have an idea of doing what I do, but in a cartoon version. I've been kind of storyboarding some ideas with that. I think there's potential there, maybe even a bigger audience, but I don't know. Any other questions regarding in the back?
How much do you pay attention to the analytics of your videos, and do you let that kind of affect where you go creatively? Like if Engine Week takes off, do you go like, oh, everyone love this topic and talk more about that? Or do you just plan on and then continue with what you were?
I'm sorry, I missed the Exeter videos? Oh, good question. So the question is, how much do I pay attention to the analytics? The best way I can share with this is don't, okay? Because it's not going to be really helpful to you, especially starting out. I glance at them every now and then. I mean, for sure, I'll look, obviously, of what each video is getting as far as views and where people drop off and stuff like that. I know people that have studied that. I don't know how many people out there that are older like me, but a long time ago, the newspaper used to put out the winning lottery numbers over like a period of time, and people would study those to try to figure out and unlock the code to winning the lottery. Please compare that to that, okay? It's not going to be that helpful to you. It's not. Where that does come into effect sometimes, and that is sponsorship or advertisers, sometimes they want the metrics. And what I'm usually, like, I don't want to get into that. Usually I'll say, like, I don't pay attention to that, to be honest. This is what we have on a rolling 30-day average. Right now, we've just come out of a slow season, Christmas, because it's harder to get interviews and people are just doing other things. Attention is going elsewhere. So kind of historically around the Christmas season is a little bit slower on watch time. So we're hovering right around 225,000 views per 30-day rolling average. I'll share that. I hope not to share it right this minute, because it should jump up to like around 350 or 400. But when they see that, that is very selling, marketable for you. Because you think about even a magazine, which, well, I'll go into that tomorrow. But so EAA is the Experimental Aircraft Association, which is that big entity. They've put out sport aviation for decades and decades. And they have about, I want to say 130,000 subscribers that get that magazine. So if you do the math real quick, that's a magazine that people pay big bucks. And just to give you an idea, right, because I'm trying to compete with this right now and convert people from magazine, which is a static thing that's parked on a page. This full page ad right here goes for about $5,000 to $7,000. Okay, that's 1 month, one insertion. They're getting about 130,000 a month when this comes out. We're getting 230,000 on a slow season. So we're trying very much to convince people to convert from magazine to video, because they are, in fact, and here's the thing, that's a static picture. Our ads here throw up their logo in action. There's a voice-over verbal call-out, and then an action of going through their website to showcase what they're doing, or an airplane showing that flying for like 10 seconds. It's way more value than what they're paying for. And honestly, we're right around, we need to charge more, right? This is where we can talk, if you're going to come back tomorrow, the business side of things. There's a point in time we have to transition from bootstrapping a business and start a business to, okay, you're here. We've been here for 8 years, we're here, right? We could be gone tomorrow based on trends, but we're here, and start charging more. But for our highest tier, if you will, we're up to about $1,250 a month for a sponsor. And that's like the full package, or like you're kind of everywhere. But I also try to go to the lower end of the spectrum, about $500 of just like a logo insertion, because not everybody has, especially in aviation, it's a smaller niche, definitely small business style model. So not all of them have that money, right? So yeah, as far as the metrics, don't let that overwhelm you. I wouldn't focus too much on it other than just some of the little things just to help you steer you just a little bit. The main thing is content creation, and getting it out there. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Real new to this, did you talk about the pull, rest, pull? Can you elaborate on that?
So the question is, I mentioned earlier about the pull, rest, pull, and that's just something I'm saying as a methodology to go through to keep attention, all right? Because again, the most important, let me back up for a second and come back to that. The most important thing in all of this, okay, this is all you got. This is what gets people's attention and gets everything started, right? How many of you all have walked through a store? I do this all the time. This is where all this stuff started, right? Just something, go to Walmart or Barnes & Noble and just sit there for like 10 minutes and just study, because these are guys making the big money, okay? Look at the stylization, the colors, the text, the fonts. Like, this is what you study. And if you notice, I mean, be your own judge here. What grabs you the quickest? Honestly, it's the simplest, right? It is the simplest cover that grabs your attention, right? Black and white, yellow, and the primary color. Like, there's hundreds of videos out there on YouTube. Think of a baby in a baby's room. You have primary colors. It's kind of silly to think, but that's what gets our attention. Very, very simple things. And when possible, I try to, I can't always because of where I capture video, it's not a good background, but every now and then I get a good, clear background, right? Blue sky, there's like 3 or 4 colors there that are really grabbing your attention. This is all you have. People are doing the doom scroll. You've got like a second. It's like, what's that? So you focus on, you've got the thumbnail. Immediately after the thumbnail, you've got the description. After the description, people look at the time. So those 3 things of all you got to get people's attention: thumbnail, title, and the time, the length of it. Like, do I have enough time to watch this, right? Beyond that, going back into the pull, rest, pull theory, is that, and I wrote this down and I didn't share it. In a movie, you guys have seen this style, I don't know what you call it, but where the movie starts, immediately they drop you right into the action, like everything is going, bullets are flying, explosions are happening, music is loud. Like, that's kind of what you want to do when possible on YouTube. You don't need to carry that the entire way, but you really have to, the hook, right? That's what they call the hook. You really have to hook them in and then slow it down after. But even through that, you want to be able to bring the pace up, whether it's a tone change in your voice or using the music to transition to something, even if it's just for B-roll, it's changing things up, right? Unfortunately, all of our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and you have to keep things moving. So it's just a little simple rule to follow through your content creation to try to keep things moving. And especially if you're doing an interview, like I do a lot of interviews, nobody, including me, likes to just sit there and look at a talking head. Right, and truthfully, who are you, right? And I've shared with other people too sometimes. Like unless you're some big actor and you're drawing attention because you're a big actor, like I'm not devaluing you as a person, but I'm saying as far as attention, who are you? Like I've been doing this for 8 years. When I go to an air show, people know me by name, people wave to me, and like I'm known in my space. But at the same time, like I'm not going to talk a talking head for 10 minutes. I'm going to throw in some airplanes flying by or something being built or, something like that. Does that make sense? Bless you. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate you all being here. This has been a fun experience for me. I am normally on the back side of the camera and luckily blessed to be able to find talent that I just do the Q and they do the A, and they talk the entire time, right? So I'm really good at getting people talking, but this is new to me doing this, so I appreciate you giving me a little leeway here today. But if you're interested in talking about more of the business side, we've got the how to create a successful channel. Tomorrow we can go to the specifics of the business side of things, and working with sponsors, my experience with travel, some of the costs involved, and maybe a little bit of even marketing yourself on social media. Yes?
Yeah, I've got a question for you if we have a minute. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. So sponsors, obviously, you've got to get traction before you get sponsors. So, like how it's, I guess my question is, for example, getting interviews. It might be hard to get an interview if your channel's very small. So you kind of started off with a bang, but have you thought about that, how someone can get some momentum?
Okay, so the question is how to gain some momentum so you can even start a channel and hopefully get some advertisers. And here's the thing that I've learned from doing over 500 interviews, 530 interviews. You want to pick something that you're passionate about it, that you can become passionate about it. You wake up, right? I mean, you're alive during this. And that'll carry through to people, even when you call them to ask them for the interview. But what I've found over the years, ironically enough, and maybe it's just my space because of the type A personality of pilots in aviation, but people don't mind having their camera pointed at their face and talking about the cool things they do. Okay? So I think if you have an interest in something, make the call, be excited about it, explain what you're wanting to accomplish. I don't think you're going to get turned down very often, to be honest. People like to talk about the cool things that they are doing, and especially if somebody else thinks what you're doing is cool. Like, I think that is very, what's the word? Complimentive or... Yeah, when somebody's like interested in doing what you're doing, of course you're going to explain it, right? So don't let that hinder you from starting a conversation. And you'll be surprised maybe that some of the stuff, let me tell you right now, out of all the things that happened, the money, which it's not huge money, let me be honest, okay, it's paying the bills. But the biggest thing, and this is kind of humbling to me, I am just blown away, is the access that I get now. right? Whether it's being able, like I just did for this year's Engine Week series, I went up to Wisconsin, it was really cold, and there's this company that's been around for a long time, but they're making this V-twin diesel two-stroke engine. It's called Delta Hawk. It's amazing. The technology is amazing. And like simple phone call, they know who I am, and like boom, full factory tour into their wind tunnel test area with the engine. I mean, this is like NASA for aviation. You know, I'm just like, I'm so thankful to have the access to sit down at a boardroom table with these guys that are making millions of dollars and want me to showcase what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Let's just say sweet spot for length of video.
Okay, the question is the sweet spot for length of video. I said, for me, it's about 18 minutes, but like 12, I think 10 minutes you have to be before YouTube will put videos in the middle. Even they try to space out ads, so anything over 10. So that's why I try to do between 12 and 18. If it's really interesting, or if it's a factory tour, it just is what it is. Like, it might go 30 or 45 minutes, and that's one of those things where, yes, I want people to watch, and they still might watch and drop off, but it's also me doing a service to the community, right? Where that somebody else isn't able to go there, and I'm there, I'm the boots on the ground for them, so I might let it run wrong. And here's the thing, I think there is starting to be a transition. I've been watching some videos, people are talking about this. The TikTok and Facebook Reels, although getting attention, people are starting to get a little bit bored of them because they're not very deep, right? They're just the quick stuff. To really learn something, and if you're truly interested in it, you're gonna watch the whole thing, right? So don't be afraid, but to answer your question, 12 to 18 minutes. Okay, all right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.